generations. And now, the power of two restores the one.
We got a bidet! Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are talking about the much anticipated Five Nights at Freddy's movie. That is definitely one of our most anticipated films of the year. If you're not familiar with Five Nights, this is a video game movie where the video game came out a long time ago, and ever since the game came out, people have been wondering if and when there would ever be a movie, and we finally got it. So we are here to talk to you about our impressions from the film, with no spoilers first, give it a rating, and then we will go ahead and talk about spoilers. That way we can kind of justify a little bit more the ratings that we gave it. And so I guess I'll go ahead and, just start talking about how, I took in the movie. Before we watched the movie, my expectations weren't super high, but I had the expectations, at least for what I saw from the video game. In the video game, you're the security worker and you're supposed to watch over Five Nights, and you have to survive the night by locking the doors and not letting them get to you, all that good stuff. And so I was anticipating a little bit more of what was going on in that sense. But I feel like I was a bit let down in that sense, just because, one, the movie did not make me feel like, once we were done watching the movie, I did not feel like I had to immediately turn on my PlayStation VR and have us all play some Five Nights at Freddy's VR, just because that's the one that we have. I had no feeling to do that. Honestly, I was more questioning some of the choices that they made in the movie. Again, not spoiler, but I would say that this movie focused too much on stuff that, in my opinion, wasn't Five Nights focused than what made the video game so great. It's kind of hard to describe that without going into spoilers. But basically, where I'm at is that I feel like it wasn't quite the Five Nights movie that people wanted. Let alone, I don't really think it should vouch much for being a Five Nights film, given what happened in the movie. I think it just had the cosmetics of the Five Nights because of this, and that. But again, we'll get into details. Sarah, what did you think of the film?
Well, I feel like the trailer alludes to it basically being you living out the video game, but in a movie form. So you're anticipating probably a lot of jump scares, anticipating, lots of suspense, and, trying, in my eyes, it was going to be a security guard, which is played by Josh Hutcherson. And I was expecting him to try to see if he could survive those 5 nights. And then that was my anticipation for the film. The 5 nights part of it, there was no 5 nights. I mean, I guess I didn't count how many nights he was actually there, but that didn't have anything to do with the movie. They didn't have any emphasis on lasting 5 nights or anything like that. There is obviously some killings, as you would expect in a movie that's about the video game where people are trying to survive, but there was some that it was gorier than I was expecting for a PG-13 film. Not like it was disgusting, but just, there was some parts of it that I think kind of stretched the rating maybe a little bit, which I appreciated, because in my eyes, I wanted this thing to be terrifying. And typically the lower rating, the less scary a movie is, just because you can't go very far with terror. So I don't know. I thought it was okay. It wasn't exactly what I was hoping for or really wanting. Um, and it wasn't really what I think the trailer was alluding to either, which is kind of disappointing. But I feel like I'm trying to be careful here on how much spoiler related to not say. Um, but I feel like there was too much emphasis on like the side story or like Josh Hutcherson's character. I think his character name was Mike. I feel like there was too much emphasis on what was going on in his personal life and not enough on just surviving at Freddy's, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think once we get to talk about spoilers and how we can, talk about the plot that I would argue is focused on way more than Five Nights itself, we'll be able to get into that. Um, some other stuff that I want to bring up too. In the media, people really wanted a rated R film for Five Nights so they could really go for, a scary film. And so they went with a PG-13 rating. And I was thinking to myself, as I was, talking about stuff on here, PG-13 does not mean that it's going to be a bad movie. You can do scary stuff with PG-13. I I just fact checked myself. I remember when I was a kid, there was a movie called The Ring. The Ring is rated PG-13, and I can guarantee you some people are still scared to put in a VHS tape and answer a phone call from someone that they don't know. That's PG-13. The movie The Visit, where those two kids went to visit their grandparents and, the grandma wanted to like cook one of them in the oven, that's PG-13. And then the third one that I looked up, um, The Last Exorcism 2. I actually did enjoy that movie. It came out when I was in high school. And I remember that movie being, for one, more interesting, and two, more scary than this movie was. And so what I'm trying to get at here is it doesn't have to be rated R for it to be scary. Let me see really quick. Hopefully I
If
can.
you're looking up the rating of the video game, I
Yes.
already pulled it. It
What's
is rated P for teen. It is not rated M for mature.
So there you go. I mean, the video game is rated T. So yes, I think a PG-13 rating is appropriate. But if you can get away with anything that has been in those Five Nights games, you should be able to emulate that on screen. And so I think that's where the biggest problem comes into play with this movie. Um, Also, there's a couple of things that happen in this movie, which we'll get to, where I looked at Sarah and I said, what are we doing here? Like, why is this in the film? Um, just because it was ridiculous, it felt like it didn't fit. And so it pulled me out of the movie. And
I felt
then,
like there was some weird editing mistakes too. Like at one point,
yeah,
Freddy's character, his animatronic, in one scene, he was super torn up, beat up, missing one of his ears, looked like he was really damaged. And then in the following scene, which was supposed to be taking place, I don't know, 10 minutes later in the movie, like 10 minutes later in their lives, he was perfect. Like both ears were there. He looked like he was fully flocked in his fur, whatever his material was. There was no scrapes or scratches or dirt or anything. Like it didn't seem cohesive, and that's just one of the examples of something that was like kind of not. There was just something off about it.
yeah. And I'm sure there's people that, because, okay, so we personally have only played the VR game. I've seen bits and pieces of the original games. I am a teacher, and my students tell me about what happens in the other games, so I have a decent idea of what's going on. So in, maybe the only thing I could see if this is not a mistake, if if there's multiple animatronics of these things, and the one that looked all messed up did its thing, and then the next scene there was another suit. But I really don't think that's the case. It didn't seem like they had extras in the back or anything like that.
I had been wondering that too, but there wasn't really anything to signify that that could be a thing. And I don't mean to be all bad about the movie. There was parts of it that I liked, and there was definitely suspenseful parts where I was like, kind of white knuckling my hands trying to figure out like what's gonna happen next, or like are they gonna get him? And uh, so there was definitely some scary parts. I don't mean to be so downer about it. It's kind of easier to focus on the flaws, I suppose, than what was enjoyable. Um, it's kind of interesting to me. This is the first thing I've seen in a long time from Josh Hutcherson, and we also had Elizabeth Lale in there, who I know from the Netflix show You. If anybody's seen that, she was in, I think, just the first season, but maybe two seasons. I feel like they did all right. His character seemed kind of flat and kind of like a deadbeat, but that was the character, not necessarily him. And I think he might have been maybe out of his element because he hasn't really been in a whole lot, at least that I'm aware of, recently since Hunger Games, which was quite a few years ago, probably a decade ago now.
Not to be that guy, but there's probably somebody in this film that's more important than them. Matthew Lillard. He's got quite the following himself. He is Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, the live action series. He was also in Scream back in the day, so he's been around for horror movies for sure. He's in the preview, so we all know that he's a part of it. But yeah, he's in there too. He does a great job. So the last couple of movie discussions we've had, I've gone first. So it's your turn, Sarah, to go first on the ratings for this one.
I'm gonna give it a 5. And my reasoning for that is that I thought it was an okay film. I didn't think it was super great. I'm trying to take my disappointment aside from what I wanted this film to be and just kind of taking the film for what it is. Uh, I feel like there was a little too much emphasis on Mike's personal life, maybe not enough emphasis on the lore of the actual characters themselves from Freddy's. Uh, I feel like there could have been some different things focused on to make it a little bit more suspenseful and a little bit more scary than just the bits and pieces that were sprinkled throughout. So I think it's all right. It was an average movie. I don't think it was necessarily a bad movie. It definitely could have been better.
I would agree. And this is actually one of the times that we're going to have the same rating. I was bouncing between a 6 and a 5, but with a couple of things that were going on in there that we'll talk about in a minute, I think it's going to have to come down to a 5. It is not a bad film. It's just, it's not a great film either. And I feel like when we have something as big as Five Nights at Freddy's, I think they should really put in the effort to make this feel like the game. And I feel like this did not. There's a couple of things that we noticed right off the bat in the film that were very different from the game, which, kind of pulled us out. And so, little things here and there that just, I feel like if they would have, taken care of them, this would have been a bit better. So I would go with a 5 as well for Five Nights. Five Nights at Freddy's gets a 5 out of 10. So that was our ratings for the film, our non-spoiler discussion. And so we are going to go ahead and get into the spoiler discussion and hopefully give you guys a better idea of what we gave it out of 10. So you've had plenty of time to go ahead and move on. So here's some spoilers. So we opened the film with probably the closest that this movie was to the video game, quite honestly. The opening was showing a security guard trying to, outrun these things. He's just a random security guard. It's not one of our main characters. But it's the reason why the job opening became a thing, right? Because he left or he was killed. With the screaming, I assume he was killed, but we don't actually see what does happen to him. And that's kind of what happens a lot in this film. There's a couple of instances where we do see what these animatronics are doing to people, but there is a lot of off-camera stuff too. So the
It's
job,
such a bad thing because if you think of the video game, when the characters do get you, it's not like you see yourself being murdered. It's just all of a sudden screen black, you're dead.
no, I mean, I would agree that we don't see that stuff, but we'll get there. We'll get there. So the job opening opens up, and then we start to, meet. Was that you said Josh Hutcherson? Is that his name?
Yep. He plays
So
Mike.
we start to learn a little bit about Mike, and basically Mike is taking care of his sister. Uh, just the two of them. He is barely an adult, as he says himself in the movie. Like, he doesn't really see that he could take care of her very well. So we kind of see that dynamic between them. She doesn't really respect his authority much. And he's doing what he can to, give her a decent life. He's behind on his bills. When we open the film, he is a security guard, I think, at a mall, and he sees a little kid just kind of standing on his own, and then an adult male walk up to him and basically aggressively pull him away. And so that triggers Mike to go and try to see if this is basically a kidnapping. And instead of asking the kid, like, hey, do you know this guy? He just full on goes into it and just beats the crap out of this guy. Throws him into the water fountain in the mall, and then punches him a ton of times in front of his own son. Was the dad a little aggressive? Of course. But Mike didn't see if that was actually a dad or a stranger, so he lost his job. So now he has to find a new job, which he eventually gets the job at Five Nights at Freddy's, whatever it's
Freddy
called.
Fazbear's Pizzeria.
There we go. Thank you. So he gets the job there. And what we learn a little bit from him, because he sleeps a lot, we learn that he's trying to keep dreaming about an instance that happened in his life. Also, the reason why he was so concerned about the kid at the mall is that when he was younger, him and his family went out on a camping trip, and his brother was abducted by somebody and kidnapped, and they never found out, what happened with him. And so he keeps trying to replay the scene in his head and his dreams to see if he can figure out any other information. When he's on the job at Five Nights and he's sleeping, his dreams are getting infused with these children. I forget how many there are, maybe 5 or 6. They're the ones from the trailer, okay? The ones that approach him in the woods. And so he's trying to find out information from them, if they know anything about what happened with his dream. And basically, he, meets this cop that shows up at the Five Nights place. And, she seems to know a little bit too much, in our opinion. He seems a little skeptical too at times. But she's going around and, talking to him, showing him things. I think in his dream, one of the kids cut him. And so she offers to patch him up. And so that's how she, swindles her way into the place. Not to, make Mike look like he's not doing his job, because remember, his job is to keep people out, but she's a cop. So it's a little bit different there. Also going on is I think, is it their aunt?
Yes.
So Mike and his sister's aunt wants to get custody of Mike's sister, so that, well, in Mike's opinion, so she can have the monthly checks come to her house, because she's taking care of Mike's sister. Do we know what Mike's sister's name is?
Abby.
Abby. So she wants to get custody of Abby, and so she's even trying to, like, get Mike's babysitter for Abby and her friends involved to go into Five Nights, or to go into Freddy's. I keep calling it Five Nights. To go into Freddy's, break in, so that Mike loses his job, and then, since he has no job, he won't be able to take care of Abby. So then Abby will be forced to go into custody with the aunt. So we have that subplot going on as well. The friends do eventually go to Freddy's and break in after. So once Mike leaves for the night, and it's during the day, the group goes in, so they know that he's not even there, and they just wreak havoc in the place, destroying pinball machines, destroying the glass from the prize area, where you turn your tickets in for toys. And in the mix of doing all this, the animatronics do come alive to protect their restaurant, and they do pick them off one by one and kill them off. Let's see. So then the cop goes to Mike's house, and it's unexpected, of course. I just met this girl at my work. Why is she showing up on my doorstep, kind of a thing? And she informs him that Five Nights got broken into, and it's going to be his fault. And so, and she has his sleeping pills, and she's like, "What the heck are you doing?" And so he's like, "Let me explain." And so they go, and he tells her all about what happened with his dreams and what happened when he was a young kid, and they get more of an understanding of each other. And so Mike decides to bring Abby to Freddy's while he's on the job and just kind of hang out with him.
Well, because his babysitter's gone, not answering.
Right, because she did. So the sister's with him, and the sister is getting involved with these animatronics. And this is where I'm like, what the heck is going on here? So these animatronics come alive, they see Abby, and they are playing with her, like super nice. Like they're almost like doing snow angels on the ground. There's no snow, of course, but they're like laying on the ground. It's kind of like in Lion King when Timon, Pumbaa, and Simba are all laying looking up at the stars. It's like that. And they're all having a grand time. Well, it's a little weird because these things, we all know them to kill, but really what's happening is they're trying to get Abby to buy into being their friend, because they want Abby to be one of them. And so the rest of the movie kind of goes into this. They want Abby, Mike wants to protect her, and so then they have to face off with the animatronics a little bit as well. And
it's really strange because at one point when Mike finds them and he's like, "What's going on here? Like, why'd you leave the room with me?" And, "Oh, well, these are my ghost friends." And he just takes her for what, like, "Oh, okay, they're just your ghost friends." Like, excuse me, what? Like, why is this just a normal thing?
Right. That's what we thought as the viewer too. Like, is this the actual backstory to these animatronics? Are they ghost children that were murdered or something here? Because they just glaze right over it. Is there anything else I should say before we get to like the final reveal of the film?
I would
gets
probably
murdered.
the aunt gets murdered.
We'll get to that though in a second, because that's kind of ridiculous too.
Yeah, it's strange. I would just go to the bargaining.
The bargaining? Oh, yeah. So basically what it comes down to is that Mike and the aunt come to an understanding of having Abby, being in the aunt's custody instead. And Mike goes,
I meant the kids with Mike.
oh, how Mike had to basically trade Abby for information.
He asked the kids and said he would give them anything if they told him where his brother went or who kidnapped his brother or whatever, to be able to find him. And what they said they wanted was Abby. And at first he said yes because he realized what a crappy brother he is and that he can't really take care of her and that she really likes these kids and they're all friends. So, like, it shouldn't be that bad of a deal. And then he immediately regrets it. And this isn't what I wanted. And I didn't realize that this is how this was going to go down, and has to go back and fix everything.
Yeah.
But he's talking to them through his dreams. So in the background, Freddy had somehow taken a taxi over to their house, and the aunt was there. She was watching TV, and then when Abby sees Freddy, she sees him as a friend and doesn't think anything of him being at her house because it's her friend. She's a kid, right? And well, what happened to my aunt? And they say, oh, she's just sleeping. And you see like just her legs and her high heels uh laying on the ground. So like you can't really see her body other than like her feet. So it's really strange because they're basically insinuating that they killed her, but they're just telling Abby that she's asleep. But how did they kill her without Abby hearing anything going on or any screams or like absolutely nothing, just normal noises, I guess. So it's kind of weird. So then they take a taxi, just Abby and Freddy, back to Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. And this is where he looks really beat up, but then when they get to the pizzeria and the taxi ride's over, he looks perfectly normal, like nothing ever happened to him. So it's very strange. Yeah, so around
Her,
this time,
I was gonna say, I mean, so now we're at the point where Abby, the police officer lady, and Mike are all at the Freddy's, right?
not quite. Mike and Vanessa, which is the policewoman, they are at a police outpost.
Oh, I'm
She
kind of
was
skipping over that.
patching him up because he was very badly hurt.
Yeah, he got like really jacked up in his latest dream. So, or no, it's because he was in that chair too, right? Like, so he was in the chair locked in, and they had the Freddy thing coming over his face with the saw blades, and he actually gets out like in the nick of time. Um, but
I believe so, yeah.
uh,
But
basically,
this is
basically,
kind of go ahead.
Vanessa reveals that she's actually the daughter of the one of the. I didn't understand. Is he the owner, or is he just one of the workers?
She's the owner.
Okay, so
She is the owner's daughter.
she is the owner's daughter. And so when they go back to Freddy's, there's one more animatronic that does come out. And I'm sorry, I don't know the animatronic's name, but it's the rabbit. The rabbit dude comes out, and turns out that this one isn't an animatronic. This one's an actual person in the suit. And it's the guy that gave Mike his job in the first place. And so he's trying to take out the people there. I mean, he full on stabs his own daughter trying to murder her. I You can help me here. I don't really understand his motive. Like, why do people even come to Freddy's?
So I feel like you're kind of glazing over the backstory that Vanessa tried to give him, which, to be fair, in the movie they kind of glaze over it, so it's kind of weird that they didn't put more emphasis on that. But the owner was a very mean man, and not a lot of people really liked him. And he was the one who was in the yellow rabbit suit.
Yep.
And all of these children started disappearing in the 80s, and he knew that they were going to tear Freddy's basically from top to bottom looking for those kids. And so where's the one place they would look is inside the animatronics. So I guess what he had done was killed the kids and put them inside the animatronic suits. Now, why people didn't find him when searching, I can understand why they didn't search in the animatronics, but why they didn't smell that there was dead bodies in the animatronics, that I don't understand. You're gonna have to just take it for what it is and kind of skip over that fact if you want to be okay with enjoying the movie. So why is he such a jerk? I don't have an answer. It's just that he's a jerk. But there's this wall of drawings from kids. And so in one of the drawings is the yellow rabbit who's like holding hands with all these kids, and they're all having fun. And so I guess it's kind of some sort of the kids in the animatronics in like, in Freddy and in Foxy and Chica, and what's the rabbit's name? I don't remember.
I don't know. I just said that. I don't know what the name was.
No, the blue rabbit.
I know Freddy and Foxy.
And Chica.
I know it's a chicken.
Chica is
I'll look it up.
Okay, well, anyway, they all obey the yellow rabbit's orders because they think that he is their friend, but really what he's done somehow, and just use your imagination and go with it here, is that he has like wiped their memories of anything from before this life. So they don't know or don't remember that he's a bad man and that he kidnapped them and killed them and put them in these suits. So they do whatever he says. So that's why they kind of tend to murder people, because he's controlling them. So what Abby winds up doing, the little girl, is she colors a picture showing that the yellow rabbit's mean, and she puts it up on that wall, and then all of a sudden it's like the kids in the animatronics remember that he's a jerk, and so then they all go after him and take him out. Mike does do some trying to help save Abby, and he takes out a couple animatronics by shocking them. They're able to come back to life later. It's kind of like putting their system on a reboot, so they're not fully functioning for a while. That's kind of like the big climax of the movie, if you will, is this battle between everybody against the yellow rabbit is essentially what it winds up being. And at one point he takes his helmet off, or the headpiece off, and so we can see that he's the guy that gave Mike the job to work there in the first place. And that he's like the staffing agency guy. Did you find the name yet?
Bonnie.
Bonnie the bunny. Makes sense. So then we kind of get like a little series of flashes of like what the future's like. So we've got Vanessa. She had been stabbed by the yellow rabbit, so she's in the hospital, basically in a coma from the looks of it. But Mike is still kind of looking after her or checking on her from time to time, kind of waiting for her to wake up from this coma. And it looks like Mike and Abby are just kind of living happily ever after, in my opinion. The school teacher is talking to Mike, talking about how much more, maybe it's not a school teacher, it might be a social worker, but talking about how much Abby's thriving, and she's doing so much better now because she's got a better connection with Mike and whatnot. And there's one, it's not an after credit scene, but there's one more scene that's kind of important. There's one more scene with a yellow rabbit that's kind of important because they show him in the back room. There's some sort of like spring-loaded pins that help hold the person inside the animatronic, but they're spring-loaded and really old and kind of finicky, so they had stabbed him a whole bunch of times in the ribs. And the end of the movie, I think they showed Foxy kind of dragging him to like the back room or something, which was kind of alluding to them beating him up or like finishing him off. But we see him kind of struggling in the back room by himself, like as if he might not really be dead. To me, this is insinuating that there might be a sequel, potentially. The after credit scene was with the taxi cab driver. Do you remember? Oh, it was that he looked in his passenger seat and he saw this like weird, creepy clown toy that Mike had been seeing throughout the film. That was the animatronic they were going to put him in, or they were going to put Abby in. Excuse me. It was this weird, creepy clown animatronic. So kind of like one final jump scare in the after credits.
Yeah. All right, so we talked about what happened in the movie. We talked about some of the things that we didn't really care for. So, Sarah, what was the one thing that kind of happened right away where we were like, not too sure that that's how it's supposed to be, but maybe we're inexperienced and we don't know.
I'm not sure exactly what piece you're mentioning, but one of the things that I'm kind of not.
I was trying to give you a hint there.
I think we're on the same page with your clue that you just did there with your epic blinking. Okay, anyway. There's supposed to be, at least in the Five Nights at Freddy's game that we played, it's whenever you're looking at the security cameras, any animatronics on the screen cannot move. Well, you can't look at every camera all at once, which is how they're able to move, because you're constantly checking the different cameras to see where everybody's at. Well, in this, when they were showing one of the security cameras, they showed the animatronics just freely moving and walking around, which is kind of freaky because animatronics aren't supposed to move. But like that defeats the whole purpose of like that's part of the game. That's part of the identity, and you just ruined it like right off the bat. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. I think also what was a little different was, so like in, like you were saying, in the game, there's the one screen that you flip between the different ones, whereas in this movie he had like 4 or 6 of them up all at once. And so that takes away right away that anticipation of flipping between the cameras, because I feel like what this movie should have been a little bit more of is we're kind of almost supposed to like be Mike in the film, and then we see like Mike flip through the cameras just like we would in the game, and we know from playing the game what kind of suspense that can create, and so we start to get that suspense of like, oh, he has the animatronic on the screen, he shouldn't click the button, like then he clicks it, and then when he's just nonchalantly going through them again, us as the audience knows that one of them has moved or something, like they're missing from the previous shot. And I think they really, like, they did not in any way hit that on the head or even come close to it. Like, they didn't even swing at the nail. Just because the movie seemed to be more of when the people broke in, the ones that were supposed to, try to quote unquote make Mike lose his job, when they came in, yeah, they just flat out slaughtered them. There was no reason to have security camera interactions with that, because they weren't security guard at night, just like the game. And so like when Mike is or doing this stuff, the first interaction we get with him is them, being all happy and playful. And so I thought that was really, really off. Like, he should be afraid of these things. It shouldn't be like when we play the game, we play the first level right from the get-go, we're afraid of these things because we know what's going to happen. They're going to kill you. But for him, it's they happen to be nice. Who in their right mind at all is like, oh yeah, my sister I've been taking care of for almost all her life. Yeah, I'm just going to give her up these animatronics. They seem nice. Who? What? Why? That should never have crossed his mind. I get he's a little rattled, so to speak, because of what's going on in his like dreams and stuff, and he knows he can't take care of his sister. But like, I don't buy for a minute that he would like, as much as he was fighting his aunt for the custody battle, why would he give up his sister to a couple of animatronics?
I think it was just a moment of desperation and probably him thinking out loud, which he really shouldn't have. But that whole backstory of him in the custody and the aunt and having to find his brother and then the dead kids and the ghosts in the animatronics, all of that I think was focused on way too much.
Yeah, way too much.
What I really wanted more focus on was the animatronics. And if this yellow rabbit is supposed to be so scary and brutal, show me, because all we saw was him in the last like 5 minutes stabbing Vanessa. Like, okay, he stabbed somebody, that's pretty brutal, and he beat Mike up pretty bad. I think he like kicked him right in the head with his metal shoe from the animatronic, which I don't know how that didn't kill Mike, but or leave him like gushing blood. But why wasn't he more scary? Like, I feel like he was scary because we were told he was scary. And what movies to me are supposed to be is show me, don't tell me. Make me feel scared. Don't just tell me I'm supposed to be scared.
Yeah, I think they kind of leaned on the success of the video games a little bit too much for this film, because although it's going to sound absolutely terrible for me to say this, but when we learned about these ghost children, and I'm sorry, I didn't pick up that he put them in these things that would like cut up the children and kill them. I think that needs to be on the film. Why? Because people are way more afraid of things if they see it than if they hear it, right?
Well, and if they're supposed to be their dead bodies in these, how come when the people broke in to trash the place, we saw a child's hand reach through the mouth of one of the animatronics to grab her and pull her in, and then she got chomped in half. How is the kid's arm being able to go through the? How is the kid's arm not pinned in there? How is the kid's arm able to move if they're dead? Like, it just,
Well,
so many inconsistencies, it just doesn't make sense.
that part of it is going to play into the like ghostly part of it, because like they're not little kids pulling the strings inside of these animatronics and they're just killing people because they're mad that they're in the animatronics. It's a ghostly thing. So I mean, I can see that being a thing, but again, we're talking about this, the problem that we had with the movie is they did not build the fear that the game has. I just watching the movie, that first segment, I was like, okay, they understand this. They can have some suspense here. When the one random security guard was, running away and stuff, I was in. But then when they shifted it to what was happening with the main people, I feel like they completely lost their way. And they tried to here's the thing. You look at the video game is successful. I feel like if we were to just take the video game and try to copy and paste it into a film, that could probably be challenging based on the way that the game works and the way that the story is told in the games, because I think it's kind of like through recordings and notes and stuff like that. At least, again, in our game, we don't play the 1, 2, 3, we play the VR. And so I understand that they need some sort of other thing happening, but that other thing should not overshadow what we're here for. And unfortunately, that's what happened.
Yeah. One of the other changes, at least from the game that we've played, was this little cupcake that's in my background.
Mm.
So in our game, it's just a little random cupcake that's sitting on your desk as a security guard, and it's like a toy prop or something. And you, at least for us, I don't think it ever really did anything. You just kind of toss it aside and that's it. But in this film, it is active. It is able to like Pac-Man chomp its way to move to different places, kind of like a Pac-Man would, to be able to move around. It's actively trying to hurt the people that it's, that Chica is like sending it to chomp on and like chew on their legs and stuff. And I think even its eyes, like it could watch and almost kind of relay to Chica what's going on. Like they had some kind of like a parallel sixth sense going on that they were able to communicate somehow, like an extra set of eyes. It was just an interesting twist that I thought was kind of neat. And some stuff it's okay to change from the game, like Jeremy was saying. It's not supposed to be an exact replica of the game. I think we were just hoping for more of that suspense and scariness that the game is so well at giving you that we just didn't quite get from this movie.
100%. That's how I feel. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about the film? I think I got my point across of, the movie. I feel the movie is leaning more on the success of the games, and for some reason they thought it was okay to just put something out with the look and the feel of it, but they didn't actually emulate what everybody really enjoyed from the games. I thought it was cool to watch, the animatronics on the screen. I thought that was really cool, but the animatronics in the game make me feel a lot more terrified than they would in the film. And they didn't at all in the film. It actually got to the point where when I was watching the film, I was like, you know what? I actually don't like some of these characters. Can't wait to see the animatronics take them out. And it was flipped. It was me watching for the animatronics to defend their home as opposed to, us being there with Mike and being terrified of them. And I don't think that was the way to go.
I would agree.
All right, so we both gave it a 5. Talked about the movie, gave you some more insight about it. It's kind of up to you whether you want to see it. I would say if you are a fan of the video games, it's worth a watch. If you don't know anything about the video games, it'd probably be an interesting watch. Just because,
I almost feel like you might like it more.
You might. Yeah, because then we wouldn't have any of our, preconceived stuff that we knew about. But there's also knockoff films that might be cool to watch too. Yeah. So if you enjoy this type of video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way you are notified when more movie discussions drop. There are plenty of other big movies coming out this year that we are looking forward to. I can name 2 of them off the top of my head. We got Wonka and Hunger Games. And so looking forward to sharing our thoughts and opinions with all of you on those. Drops a like if you liked the video, and drops a comment letting us know your thoughts on Five Nights at Freddy's, the movie. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.